Hi, mathematicians. In problem number 1, it is indicating here that we should isolate the x. The easiest way to do it is to start here with this extra guy. So I'm going to cancel that positive 7 with a negative 7. And remember the way that equations work. If I do it on one side of the equal sign, I have to do it on the other side of the equal sign as well. Since I can't actually combine a y and a negative 7, I'm just going to write y minus 7 as two separate pieces. I put my equal sign to remind me that's there. Those 7s are now canceled out. So I'm just going to bring down the rest of this. And I don't need the parentheses anymore because that was originally there to kind of keep this separate from the 7. So I don't need those parentheses anymore. So the next step that I need to make to get that x isolated is I'm going to take away this 3 with a negative 3. And I need to do it on both sides. And in this case, I can combine a negative 7 and a negative 3 because they're both numbers. So that is going to become negative 10. And I'm going to bring the y down to go with it. Those are now canceled out. And I'm going to bring down the negative 2x. And then finally, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So now my x is isolated. First, I want to warn you on the multiple choice. Look out for A. I circled it in red because it's wrong, because it's almost the same, but this one is being divided by a negative 2, and that one is not being divided by a negative 2. So do not choose A. So what they did in the multiple choice is they did negative 10 divided by negative 2. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is a positive 5. And then they just brought down the y divided by negative 2. So if I'm looking at my multiple choice, I have a positive 5, and there is one negative with that y over 2. So that corresponds with answer B, because there's my positive 5, and there's the one negative that is in front of the y over 2. Problem number 2 says that the cafe charged $2.50 for the first 15 minutes. So that $2.50 is going to be my initial value. Then they charge 5 cents for each additional minute. And they tell us to use M for the number of minutes. So after our initial value of the $2.50, we're going to add 5 cents. And again, that's because it was 5 cents for each additional minute. And here's where you need to be careful, because it's not going to be 5 cents times M, okay? It's going to be 5 cents times the number of minutes minus 15. And the reason for that is they already paid for the first 15 minutes with that $2.50. So if you don't take away the 15, you're charging people twice for the same first 15 minutes. So that means that it is going to be C. It's the same equation, it's just flipped around, but it is the same equation. In number 3, if this represents the number of boxes that he has left to test. Well, as he's testing them, the number of boxes that he has to test is going to go down because this is how many he has left. And it tells us that H represents the number of hours and asks us what the 10 represents in the equation. So this one's easier to pick out what's wrong instead of what's right. So because the variable H represents the number of hours, that 10 sitting next to the H has to have to do with hours, not days. So that's why this one is not correct because it's talking about per day. This one is talking about each week, and this one is talking about each day. So it has to be B because that is the one that says the number per hour. So that 10H represents the fact that he tests 10 boxes per hour. Number 4 looks like a crazy equation, and I guess it kind of is, but remember now you have your tools to make it easier. So simply type the equation into Desmos exactly the way it's written, and you see that you should get a line that lines up on the x-axis and tells you where it hits the x-axis, and it hits the x-axis right here at 4, because remember it goes x, comma, y. So, easy peasy, it's going to be B. Number 5 is another one that is now going to be much easier for you now that you know the Desmos calculator. You're just going to take your two equations, you're going to type them into Desmos right on top of each other in two separate lines, and just look for that intersection point. Where did the two graphs cross? They cross right there at -10, +3. For number 6, Allison delivered W pizzas per hour. So that means that we need to say, remember, per is one of our multiplication words. So W times the number of hours, and it tells you that she worked 4 hours. So I am going to replace that H with a 4, and W times 4 means the exact same thing as for W. Now let's look at Jordan, and this one for Jordan is a little bit confusing, I think. So Jordan delivered hit the wrong button here. Hold please. Okay. He delivered 2 Z pizzas per hour. So that means that we're going to multiply 2Z times our number of hours. Then it told you that he worked for 3 hours. So we're going to replace this H with 3. And 2 times 3 gives us 6. So his total is going to be represented by 6Z. So both of those match up with A because we've got our 4W and we've got our 6Z. For number 7, our first step is to type the two equations into the Desmos calculator, and then we see that they intersect at 2, 1. So that means that the x, y coordinate is 2 and 1, and then the directions tell us that we need to find the sum of x and y. So since the sum means to add, we're going to do 2 plus 1, and that gives us our answer of D, which is 3. In number 8, it says the graph represents the total number of cards in his collection, and he is selling his cards. So if he's selling his cards, the number of cards that he has left is going to go down. So that means that out of my multiple choice, C cannot be correct and D cannot be correct because both of those show an increase in the number of cards, not a decrease. So now it's between these two right here. So because he sells 10 cards, he sells the same number of cards every single time. So when it's the same number of cards every single time, we call this constant, which means that the decrease is going to be in a straight line. So that means that this one is going to be A. And again, it's because he sells the same number of cards every single day. Or, sorry, every single week.